Well, we read the passage from Exodus 34, 6 and 7, where Moses received the 10 Commandments from God after Mount Sinai. Now, first he goes up the mountain, spends 40 days and nights. God writes his law on the tablets. Moses comes down from Mount Sinai and witnesses a scene of all of God's chosen people worshiping a golden calf. So Moses was so angry that he threw down the tablets and broke the law that had been handwritten by God. Imagine the anger that God felt toward his rebellious people. He actually wanted to destroy them all. But Moses reasoned with God, reminding him of his covenant with Abraham to make Abraham's descendants as numerous as the stars in the sky. Because of Moses' appeal, God relented. Moses cut 2 more stone tablets and climbed Mount Sinai a second time. While on the mountain, God descended in a cloud, and here's what happened next. The Lord passed before him, that's Moses, and proclaimed, the Lord, a God merciful and gracious, slow to anger and abounding in steadfast love and faithfulness, keeping steadfast love for thousands, forgiving iniquity and transgression and sin, but who will by no means clear the guilty. So God himself declared to Moses the nature of his character. And God never lies. God can't lie. So let's look at each of these attributes. Merciful and gracious are related. The root word for merciful is mercy, which means compassionate, generous, forgiving, and benevolent. And the root word for gracious is grace, meaning merciful, compassionate, and benevolent. So God says he is slow to anger, but he's also just. He maintains steadfast love for thousands. He forgives iniquity, transgression, and sin, but he by no means clears the guilty. He wants us to be obedient and to seek his forgiveness. God also says that he is abounding in steadfast love and faithfulness. And I'd like to take a closer look at these 2 attributes. Abounding in steadfast love. So picture the word abounding or abundant or plentiful. What images come to mind? Anybody think of anything? Actually, that's exactly in my... You are like you're 1 paragraph ahead of me. Okay, so for me, I picture the harvest. I picture, wagons coming in from the fields with baskets loaded with apples and pumpkins, and I see the Thanksgiving table spread out with goodies and plates piled high with turkey and mashed potatoes. I smell pies baking in the oven. So synonyms for abounding are plentiful and abundant. My cup runneth over, declares the writer of Psalm 23. Thank you, Beverly. God created a bountiful world to enjoy and provide for our needs. He also created us to share this bounty with our neighbors. Now, as any of us who have volunteered at the Our Daily Bread Soup Kitchen know, that not everyone in our neighborhood enjoys bountiful food, shelter, and love. As a matter of fact, when I first started there, we were serving about 35 meals a day. Then it went to about 70, then it went to 100, and now it's roughly 150 meals a day. So there's a real need for support with food and shelter and love from others. So the fact that not everyone experiences these things makes experiencing God's abounding steadfast love so necessary and so joyful. Proof of the true depth of God's steadfast love is revealed through Jesus' death on the cross. A father who existed to love his son sacrificed that son to restore a perfect relationship with us through Jesus. The Father sent the Son, and the Son died to restore our relationship with God. Then God raised Jesus from the dead so that we too could have eternal life. Not only does God's love overflow for you and me, but it can also be trusted. Steadfast love is defined as love that is resolutely firm and unwavering. Synonyms for steadfast include loyal, faithful, reliable, and trustworthy. In fact, the term steadfast love appears over 200 times in the Old Testament. 2/3 of those references occur in the book of Psalms. Psalm 136 repeats the phrase, "For his steadfast love endures forever," 26 times. Some Bibles translate steadfast love as loving kindness, a word that means tenderness and consideration toward others. Either way, many Old Testament writers acknowledged, sought, and praised God's steadfast love. The New Testament parable that personifies God's abounding steadfast love is the parable of the prodigal son, which Donna read for us. In this story, a man has 2 sons, and the younger son tells his father, "I want my inheritance now," even before the old guy has kicked the bucket. What he asked for was unthinkable in Jewish tradition and a rejection of his father and his entire family lineage. But the father gave him his inheritance anyway. The story of the prodigal son demonstrates God's unconditional love for us, his children. That love does not depend upon our faithfulness. God does, in fact, want our faithfulness and obedience. But in this parable, even before the son seeks forgiveness, the father runs to meet him with joy while he is still at a distance. That is God's abounding, steadfast love.